She looked me dead in the eyes during our divorce mediation and said, "It's a miracle Daniel even looks like you." That wasn't just meant to hurt me. It was meant to destroy me. But her cruelty became my compass, leading me to uncover something far worse than an affair. My wife and her brother had been using my professional reputation to steal millions from retired people. The beauty of revenge? Sometimes it finds you when you're not even looking for it. My name is Mark Peterson. I'm a CPA, and this is how my divorce turned into a federal investigation. For 12 years, I believed my marriage was like a balanced ledger. Everything in its place, everything accounted for. We lived in Fairfax, Virginia, had an 8-year-old son named Daniel, and what looked like the suburban dream. I handled finances, while Amelia handled our social life. Her brother Julian was the perpetual entrepreneur, always one investment away from making it big. Over the years, I'd loaned him $80,000. Family helps family, Amelia would say, and I'd write another check. I remember the exact moment I should have seen it coming. Daniel was 6, working on a puzzle at our kitchen table while Amelia talked to Julian in the living room. "Mark's too careful," she said, not knowing I could hear. "He sees risk where others see opportunity." Julian laughed. "That's why you handle him, and I handle the money." They spoke like I was a problem to be managed, not a partner to be trusted. But I told myself they were just venting, that every family had these moments. The human capacity for self-deception is infinite when the truth is too painful to accept. Then Mom got pancreatic cancer. Stage 3. 6 months if we were lucky. I became a ghost haunting hospital corridors, my clothes permanently scented with hand sanitizer and hope. During chemo sessions, Mom would grip my hand and tell stories about Dad, how he'd proposed using his calculator, typing 143 over and over. "I love you," he'd explained. 1 letter, 4 letters, 3 letters. "You got his brain," she'd whisper, always seeing patterns where others see chaos. The last good day with Mom was a Thursday. She was lucid, almost her old self, and we spent it going through photo albums. She stopped at my wedding picture, studied Amelia's smile. "You know what your father used to say about forced smiles? They never reach the eyes. I never said anything because you seemed happy. But Mark, happiness built on performance is just delayed sorrow. Even dying." She saw what I'd spent 12 years missing. Amelia tolerated my absence for exactly 2 weeks. Then came the accusations. I was distant, obsessed, choosing my dying mother over my living family. "She has nurses," Amelia said one night, blocking the door as I tried to leave for the hospital. "Daniel needs you here." "She's dying. And we're not? This marriage is dying, Mark." The night she said that, I found her in Julian's apartment complex parking lot. I'd followed her after she said she was going to book club. Through his window, I watched them reviewing documents, her finger tracing columns of numbers while Julian poured wine. They weren't having an affair. It was worse. They were partners. She kissed him on the cheek when she left, the kind of casual intimacy that comes from shared secrets. When she got home, she slipped into bed beside me, smelling like Merlot and deception, whispered "love you" out of habit, and fell asleep instantly. I lay awake calculating. If trust compounds like interest, betrayal must too. By morning, I'd already started documenting everything, though I didn't yet know what I was documenting. Julian started appearing whenever I was gone. I'd return to find his cigarette butts on our porch, his cologne in our bedroom. Once I heard his voice from Amelia's phone, low, intimate. When I asked about it, she laughed. "God, Mark, not everything is a conspiracy. He's helping me since you're never here." Mom died on a Tuesday. Rain hammered the funeral tent like an accusation. Amelia stood beside me but felt continents away. Daniel held my hand with the same grip Mom had used. Steady, warm, real. The divorce papers arrived the following Monday. The timing was surgical. Grief had softened me, made me pliable. The documents painted me as an absent father who'd abandoned his family for months. During our first mediation, Amelia sat beside her lawyer wearing the pearl necklace I'd given her for our 10th anniversary, turned backward so the clasp faced front, a detail that cut deeper than words. Then she said it. "You want to talk about investment? You were never emotionally invested in our son. It's a miracle Daniel even looks like you." Her lawyer Brennan actually winced. But the damage was done. The doubt was planted. I signed everything they put in front of me. But something in her voice stuck with me. Not anger, but rehearsal. She'd practiced that line. That night, I sat in my car outside what used to be our house, watching Daniel's bedroom light. He was probably doing homework. Math, if it was Tuesday. I'd taught him to show his work, to prove every answer, to never trust a solution he couldn't verify. Through the window, I saw Amelia walk into his room, and he immediately closed his notebook. Even at 8, he was learning to hide parts of himself from her. The realization that my son was already keeping secrets to protect himself broke something in me that the divorce papers hadn't touched. 3 weeks later, I was microwaving dinner in my sterile apartment when Harold Whitman called. Harold was 73, a friend of Amelia's parents, retired postal service. "Mark, I'm sorry to bother you, but it's about the investment. The one Julian sold me. Your name is on all the paperwork." The microwave beeped. I didn't move. "What paperwork?" "The investment prospectus. Says you're the financial guarantor. That's the only reason I put in my retirement. All 300,000. But the dividend checks stopped coming." I drove to Harold's house that night. The prospectus was professional. Graphs, projections, my forged signature authorizing 15% annual returns. Impossible returns. "Who else invested?" I asked. "Most of our church group, maybe 12 people. We all trusted your name." That night, I spread our old bank statements across my apartment floor. Amelia hadn't changed the passwords, probably assumed I was too broken to check. The pattern emerged slowly. Regular withdrawals, always varying amounts between 500, labeled as household expenses but timed on the 3rd and 18th regardless of when bills were due. Classic Ponzi structure. New investor money paying fake returns to earlier investors. I spent 3 weeks meeting victims at a diner off Route 29. Always face to face, I needed to see their eyes, their trembling hands, their depleted hope. Margaret Ross had invested her husband's death benefits. Robert Torres, his entire 401k. Each story the same. Julian's pitch, Amelia's endorsement, my name as the guarantee. The worst was Eleanor Price, 81, who brought her husband George in a wheelchair. George had dementia, but Eleanor explained how they'd invested their last 100,000, money set aside for his care facility. "We trusted you, Mark," she said, not with anger, but with bewilderment. "At the church potluck, Amelia said you personally managed this fund. She put her hand on my arm and promised we'd be taken care of." George suddenly gripped my wrist with surprising strength, looked me straight in the eye with a moment of clarity. "They took our future." Then he was gone again, humming a song from the 40s. I excused myself, threw up in the diner bathroom, then came back and documented everything. Total stolen, $3.2 million. The investigation consumed me in ways I didn't expect. I lost 12 pounds in 3 weeks, surviving on gas station coffee and whatever the diner served. My apartment became a war room, bankers' boxes labeled by victim, walls covered with timelines, red string connecting dates like a conspiracy theorist's fever dream. One night, Daniel called asking why I missed his school play. I'd been tracking down a paper trail and lost 3 days. "You're becoming like Mom," he said quietly. "Except she lies about money and you lie about time." That stopped me cold. I drove to his school at midnight, sat in the empty auditorium where he'd performed, and wept for everything we were losing to this pursuit of justice. The next morning, I set alarms. Daniel first, investigation second. Some ledgers matter more than others. Tommy Rodriguez, one of Julian's burned ex-partners, met me at a gym in Arlington. Between sets on the heavy bag, he laid it out. Julian's got the charm, but not the brains. Someone else was running the books, keeping the scheme afloat. Amelia. Bingo. Heard her once explaining payment structures when she thought I'd left. She understood every detail, timing, amounts, how to avoid detection. Your wife's scary smart, man. Ex-wife. Not yet she's not. And that's your leverage. The DNA test took 2 weeks. Daniel's hairbrush, my cheek swab, a lab that promised discretion. While waiting, I built my case. Transaction records, victim statements, forged documents. I organized it like a tax return. Methodical, irrefutable, boring to look at but devastating in implications. Carlos, a friend at the State Corporation Commission, pulled the business filings. Amelia was listed as 40% owner of Julian's investment firm, her signature on every document, her personal account receiving consulting fees. But the smoking gun came from an unexpected source. Daniel had left his iPad at my apartment, and when I went to charge it, a notification popped up from Amelia's synced calendar. Julian Monthly Review, Fairfax Securities Office. She'd been attending monthly meetings for 2 years, logged meticulously in shared calendars she forgot Daniel could access. Each meeting corresponded exactly with the dates new investors were signed. She wasn't just complicit. She was the operational brain. I screenshot everything, my hands shaking. My 8-year-old son's iPad had given me what 3 weeks of investigation couldn't: proof of premeditation. The DNA results came back 99.97% positive. Daniel was mine. Relief flooded through me, followed by rage. She'd weaponized our son's paternity just to hurt me. The final arbitration was scheduled for a Friday. I arrived with a single box. Brennan opened with their demands: 70% of assets, full custody, permanent alimony. "Generous terms," he said, sliding papers across the table. I pulled out my folders. Counteroffer. Amelia laughed. Actually laughed. "You're in no position." I spread the evidence across the table like dealing cards. Transaction records, victim statements, corporate documents, the DNA test, wire fraud, mail fraud, elder abuse, forgery. I looked at Amelia. Using my professional license to steal from retirees. Her parents, sitting behind her, gasped. Her father stood up, then sat down hard. Amelia's mother began crying. Not the gentle tears of disappointment, but raw sobs of recognition. "The Whitman's retirement," she whispered. "Harold's heart medication. Eleanor's husband's care, you knew. God, Amelia, you knew what you were taking from them." Her father aged 10 years in 10 seconds, his shoulders collapsing inward. "We taught you better than this. We taught you that money meant nothing without honor." Amelia couldn't look at them. For the first time since this began, she looked genuinely broken. Not because she was caught, but because she'd finally seen herself through her parents' eyes and found herself unrecognizable. "The DNA test isn't about infidelity," I continued. "It's about character. Someone willing to lie about their child's paternity would lie about anything." Brennan was flipping through pages, his confidence evaporating. "This needs review." "The state prosecutor is already reviewing it," my lawyer David said. "We're offering a choice. Sign the annulment. Forfeit all marital assets for victim restitution. Cooperate fully against Julian. Or we make the call. Julian made me, Amelia started. Stop. Her father's voice was hollow. Just stop. She looked at him, then at me. For a moment I saw something human in her eyes. Not regret exactly, but recognition. The game was over. I need protection from Julian, she said quietly. He has connections. People who won't be happy about this. That's when I understood. She wasn't just greedy, she was trapped. Julian had something on her, some leverage that made her complicit. It didn't excuse anything, but it explained the desperation. Cooperate fully, David said, and you'll get protection. She signed. Julian was arrested 2 weeks later, trying to board a flight to Costa Rica. Without Amelia's protection, he folded fast. The elderly victims recovered about 60% of their money. Not perfect, but better than nothing. I kept the house for Daniel. Amelia got supervised visitation, Wednesday evenings and alternate Saturdays. She drives a 10-year-old Honda now, works as a receptionist at a medical office 40 minutes away. Nobody in Fairfax will hire her. 6 months after the trial, she lingered at my door after dropping off Daniel. He threatened to tell you about Tampa, she said suddenly. I waited. Before we were married, I was arrested there. Fraud charges. Julian made them disappear, but he kept the records. Said he'd destroy our life if I didn't help him. Started small, just introducing him to people, then it grew. She lit a cigarette. I didn't even know she smoked, and her hand trembled. You want to know the sick part? After a while, I started to like it. The control, the planning, watching those numbers grow. It was like I was finally good at something besides being your wife. Julian said I had a gift for seeing what people wanted to hear. You could sell water to a drowning man, he told me. And Mark? The terrifying part was that I could. Every Sunday at church, every school fundraiser, every neighborhood barbecue, I was shopping for marks. I looked at Harold Whitman bouncing Daniel on his knee and calculated his net worth. That's who I became. That's who I still am. You could have told me. A CPA married to a fraud? You'd have left. Maybe. Or maybe I'd have helped you. She smiled sadly. You would have. That's the worst part. You actually would have tried to help. Last week, Daniel won his school's math competition. Afterward, he asked me something that stopped me cold. Dad, do you hate Mom? I thought about trust ledgers, about balanced accounts, about debts that can never be fully paid. No, buddy, I hate what she did. But hate is expensive. It costs too much interest. He nodded, processing this in his systematic way. Like a bad investment. Exactly like that. 3 months ago, Daniel asked me to teach him about investing, real investing, not the fraud his mother and uncle perpetrated. We started with his allowance, $10 a week, invested in index funds. I showed him how compound interest works, how patience beats greed, how trust is earned in increments but lost in avalanches. Dad, he said last week, watching his account grow by 37 cents. This is slow. I nodded. Most honest things are. He thought about that, then added his birthday money to the investment. I want to help kids whose parents stole from them, he said quietly. Like Mom stole from those old people. I pulled him close, smelling his shampoo, feeling his small heart beating against my chest. Then we'll build that together, I said. Slowly, honestly, one number at a time. Julian's serving 5 to 7 years. Amelia got probation and community service. 300 hours at a senior center, helping the same demographic she'd robbed. There's poetry in that. My forensic accounting practice is thriving now. Turns out plenty of people need someone who can see patterns in chaos, who understands that numbers don't lie even when everything else does. 6 months into my new practice, Eleanor Price hired me to review her nephew's management of her remaining assets. As I went through the documents in her living room, George watched from his wheelchair, humming. Suddenly, he grabbed my hand, lucid for a moment. "You came back. The man who came back." Eleanor started crying. "He remembers you. He hasn't remembered anyone new in 2 years. But he remembers you." That night, I created a pro bono division of my practice. Every victim of Amelia and Julian's scheme gets free financial monitoring for life. It doesn't erase the damage, but it builds something from the wreckage. Daniel helps on weekends, learning that sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying those who hurt you. It's rebuilding those they broke. Trust is still a ledger. Mine just has better internal controls now. Every entry is verified, every balance proven. And despite everything, or maybe because of it, the books finally balance.